The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 9th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and Stephen Wagner as we discuss the news of the day, presented today by GameTime.co, your headquarters for all your ticket purchases for sporting events, theater events, concerts, anywhere you want to go across the United States. GameTime.co can be your go-to destination to find yourself the best tickets available. We'll talk a little bit more about Game Time a little bit later in the show. But first, guys, wow. Boy, do we have a lot to unwrap today. It's been quite the last 36 hours or so. Obviously, everybody by now knows what happened at Hard Rock Stadium on Saturday night. And I got to tell you guys something. Like, I can't remember any time in recent history seeing the degree of, you could pick your word, hate, vitriol, animosity that has been shown towards Mario Cristobal since the Miami Hurricanes, and obviously under the direction of Cristobal, blew the game against Georgia Tech at the Rock on Saturday night. The decision not to just take a knee and be out of there with a victory, 5-0, top, I don't know, 13 or so ranking going into Saturday's trip to Chapel Hill for a nationally televised night game against North Carolina. You just had to take a knee, and Mario chose not to do it. We'll debate maybe some of the reasons why that might have happened. But Miami then losing the game through just an implosion of its defense, everything breaking down, no containment on the quarterback, receivers running free, up the sideline first and down the middle of the field, allowed to get behind the coverage, which is inexcusable in that situation, all exposing enormous weakness on the defensive side of the ball of situational awareness. And I started talking about it last week. It was controversial. We'll talk more about it today, but it kind of is lost in the trash right now because of all this hate that is directed towards Mario from national media across the board, local media from various different sectors, the major columnists at the local newspapers, anchors at the local TV stations, and, like I said, national across the board, and the fan base, which is just like been totally up in arms. And Mario's got some rebuilding to do in terms of his base of support there. And I want to talk a little bit about how he might go about doing that also. So Matt, like me, you've been covering this team for a long time. Like me, I'm sure that what happened on Saturday night at Hard Rock is unlike, we've seen a lot through the years, we have, but this was probably unlike anything that we can remember.
Oh, it's good to know. I wasn't sure you were aware there were other people doing the show with you, so that's good at least. That's
I just talked for 3 minutes. Let's see how long you talk now.
That's a positive so far. Listen, the hate and vitriol you mentioned for Mario, that's usually just reserved for Mr. Shodell. So, welcome to the club, Mr. Cristobal. Now you're gonna know what it feels like. But no, I take no joy being here off that game Saturday night, mainly because I don't want to be here doing this show. But with that said, that game was the strangest thing I've seen, covering sports at all levels from high school through pros, actually, for 30 years. I mean, it's the strangest thing I've seen probably, since U.S. Customs officials seized giraffe feces from some woman at the Minnesota airport 3 days ago. So yeah, strange. See, Gary's not even listening. I knew it. That's why I did that just for Gary.
Strangest thing I know I can just sit here, but you're going to go on for at least 5 or 6 minutes because you want to double.
Yeah, I talk about giraffe feces. He's just like minding his own business. He doesn't care. Wagner's half asleep. Anyway, so look, I've never seen a 180 from the expectations heading into a game to what came out of it. Really it was not even a 180. It was more like a 720 or, keep adding multiples of 360. Although then you wind up right back at the beginning. So add multiples of 180. But really, in a 1 minute span, what fans thought Miami was to what Miami is, just the reality of where the program is. And I've been saying it's not a championship level program and not a championship level roster, but I didn't think it was going to be like this. I literally said 2 days before the game, they're going to win by 21 points easy. I said Georgia Tech might score 21, but Miami is going to score 42 or more. Like Georgia Tech's defense is awful. They are awful. And the truth is Miami.
You're wrong. Right,
of course. Miami did score more than 42 points. Just 17 of them were given to Georgia Tech, So Miami, and I also, the one thing I did say that was correct. I said if Miami's going to lose this game, they're going to beat themselves. I said there's no way Georgia Tech's going to beat Miami. That was 100% true. I mean that was the truth. Miami utterly lost this game and gifted it to a Georgia Tech team that seemed content on 3rd and 10s to run up the middle, just waiting for Miami to make a mistake, recognizing that Tyler Van Dyke had no interest in doing whatever game plan was handed to him the week of the game, which apparently was, hey, Tyler, you're going to throw 3-yard passes and hand the ball off a lot on runs up the middle. And Tyler did not seem to love that game plan. And it's interesting that you can almost tell in the first quarter by just looking at Tyler Van Dyke's posture on the bench and in the game. And if you look at the TV in the press box or at home, looking at his eyes, you can tell if he seems excited about what the game plan is, or if he's just totally bored with his life for 3.5 hours on a Saturday. He was utterly and completely bored by whatever Shannon Dawson had told him that Shannon Dawson and Mario Cristobal had come up with to beat Georgia Tech, which apparently was we're just going to run the ball a lot because Georgia Tech sucks on defense. And, at the end of the day, that game plan actually would have worked. But Tyler was not good. Tyler was out of sorts, clearly. And it wasn't only Tyler's fault. I mean, from every level, there was failure. The defense actually played really, really well until the very end. Although, honestly, Georgia Tech didn't even really try to do much. It's almost like Georgia Tech was saying on offense, like, let's just wait and see if we get behind by a couple of touchdowns, and then we'll try to open it up and be just conservative, because they had just come off a devastating blowout loss to Bowling Green. I think they were just hoping to have a close game with Miami to where they could say to their players, listen, you guys only lost by 10 to a ranked Miami team. You only lost by 14 to a ranked Miami team. Like, that was, I think, what Georgia Tech's goal was coming to the game, was to lose, but by not by too much, to have a positive, because they're not going anywhere this year. It was just pathetic. It was pathetic. And the coaching, the game plan was awful on offense. Lance Guidry, I thought he had a really good game plan on defense. But look, the corners, Corey Couch and Jaden Davis in particular were picked on very successfully, which has happened in multiple games now this year. And it came back and bit them at the end of the game. I don't know who the initial responsibility was on the final play, cornerback-wise, but he was nowhere near the receiver. And then Cam Kinchins bit up, apparently thinking that the quarterback was past the line or was going to run into field goal range or whatever, and that was a huge mistake. And it was just a brutal game. But at the end of the day, I always say nothing's ever as good as it seems. Nothing's ever as bad as it seems. And in this case, Miami's 4-1. If you entering the year, if you said Miami's going to be 4-1 entering North Carolina, most fans would be like, yeah, that's pretty much what I expected. But if you said Miami's 4-1 because Mario Cristobal, decided to try and run the ball the final 2 plays instead of taking a knee, and there was a fumble, and then the defense had just utter failure with 26 seconds left and gave up 74 yards passing, it's how it happened. It's how it looks. It's the mockery. The mockery nationally of this Miami program, it's embarrassing. I mean, let's face it, it's embarrassing. What Mario Cristobal did in this game was embarrassing. It's the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Terrible. I mean, just terrible. I don't wear my fan hat on this show. I just try to keep it real. And I mean, I've said before,
fan hat or no fan hat, it was terrible.
I said before, it's not a secret. I said it before on the show. Mario's not a good game day coach. He's a fantastic recruiter, and he's a fantastic worker. And people gravitate towards him. People work hard that are working for him as players, basically. It's professional sports now. But he has to just recover from this, and the only way he recovers from this is the only thing he knows how to do, which is recruit and work. And hopefully next time they take a knee, it's okay to take a knee. I don't know what his mindset is constantly, that you can never take a knee. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. He just doesn't seem to learn from some of the mistakes. He's just so set in what he does and his mindset that he doesn't understand sometimes. It's okay to just give up, and not run a play because the game's over. You won the game. This whole theory of Don Chaney trying to get him to 100 yards. He had 100 yards rushing before the last 2 plays. He had 106 yards in the game. He gained 2 plays, 2 yards, and then 4 yards. The 2 plays they should take in the knee. He had 100 yards. So all this shenanigans about, they wanted him to get 100 yards. He had 100 yards the play before and the play before that, for that matter. So, I mean, people can harp on that, but that makes no sense statistically or logically for any reason. I mean, it's just so shocking that I think some reporters are trying to find the reason. What could it have been? Why would they do that? The reason they do that is because Mario never takes a knee. That's not his philosophy. His philosophy is you guys work to the end of a game, and it's like a life lesson. You guys just work to the end of the game. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that's a fact. That's my opinion, because he's up by 40 points at the end of the game with 30 seconds left. He's still running plays. He's not taking a knee in those games. That's the
explanation I could come up with.
He's never learned how to take a knee. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, I spoke a lot of words, but I'm at a loss for words now. I have nothing else to say. I'm done talking about that game.
You're not at a loss for words at all. That was just an 8-minute monologue. Okay.
Well, I'm done. I'm not talking about the game ever again. I'm done talking about the game. I'm not talking about Virginia. I'm not talking about the last game in the Orange Bowl, the FIU game. I covered those 2 games. I never want to talk about those again. This is the 3rd game I've covered at Miami that I'll never talk about again, along with those 2. I will never discuss what happened in those games.
Last game at the Orange Bowl was definitely.
Those are the 3 most embarrassing games I've ever seen covering Miami. Yeah. I've seen some other things, including in high school. I covered a high school lacrosse game. This is up there with that, I guess, where a player on the other team urinated in the other team's Gatorade bucket. That was probably right up there with this in terms of embarrassment and ridiculousness. I covered that, for the Baltimore Sun community papers back in the day. Maybe those 4 things I want to talk about again. The urinating in the bucket, FIU loss, Virginia in the Orange Bowl loss, final game, and then this. That's it. Those 4 things. Done. I'm out for the rest of the show. I'm just going to stay here for the rest of the show quietly. I'm going on mute.
So, Paul Feinbaum, okay, everybody knows who he is. Listen, he likes to push buttons. He likes to create sensational headlines and things like that. He says it will transcend sports, the stupidity of Mario Cristobal. There are very few times in our industry when you see something so boneheaded and moronic as what we saw from Miami. Okay, I'm sorry. That's over the top. Okay, I mean, it's over the top. And Steven, you're new to all this, and you're just kind of observing for the first time. But that was not a one-off from Paul Feinbaum. That was the norm across the media, the sports media around the country, that were just very comfortable throwing around ridiculously abusive almost language in discussing the strategical decision of a football coach in a college football game as if it was a world event. Over the top or appropriate?
So I've now had the chance to cover in some capacity 3 different college football programs. I've had the chance to cover the University of Texas back in the day when I was an intern for the Dallas Morning News. I had the chance to cover New Mexico State at my previous job before I ended up here, and now I've had my chance to see the Miami Hurricanes, and I have seen a lot of flack directed at a lot of different coaches in a lot of different ways and on a lot of different scales. Texas is a different scale than New Mexico State. New Mexico State is a different scale than the University of Miami. Some of these are more regional. Some of these are more national. Some of these do things that become national that were initially just kind of regional. Sometimes you get attention for the right reasons. Sometimes you get attention for the wrong reasons. But I have never seen really media more generally from both the national standpoint and a local standpoint go after a coach's, make personal attacks on a coach's intelligence before. I mean, I think we've all seen players and coaches and media members disagree. Oh, he should have run it on this play. He should have thrown it on this play. The schematics on this play should have been this or that or the other thing, or, critiquing the X's and O's decision of a coach. And that stuff really is difficult to do because bottom line, if a play works, you say, hey, that was a good play call. If a play doesn't work, you say, oh, that was a bad play call. But I have never really seen media from both local and national media really go after a coach's intelligence like this before. But then again, I've also never seen something like this before. I've never seen the college version of the Miracle at the Meadowlands. I've never seen a coach choose to run a play when he could have taken a knee. The player fumbles, the opponent recovers at their own 25-yard line, and then they go 75 yards in 3 plays and 25 seconds to win the game as a 19-point underdog in a game that the opponent probably should have won by 3 touchdowns. So this is just a bevy of firsts every which way I see it. I want to compare this to something, but I literally can't. The only thing I can think of is the Miracle at the Meadowlands back in 19 whatever something year that happened back in New York. But otherwise, I've never seen anything like this. However, I was thinking the entire time that Matt was talking, I was sitting here quietly, just fuming and thinking to myself.
You had a lot of time to think because he talked for a very long time.
I can't wait for the moment that I get to say, hey guys, remember before the season when I said Miami's going to lose to Georgia Tech? I even wrote about it. And I said Miami is going to have some unbelievable highs, smashing A&M, a top 25 A&M team, which, let's be honest, they lost to Alabama, but they did look good in that loss, I thought, even though their decision-making was a little bit suspect at the end, I'll say. But I said they were going to lose to Georgia Tech. They're going to have some really awesome highs and some devastating lows because, frankly, let's look at it. This has kind of been something that's happened to Mario Cristobal at really every stop that he's had. Let's take out last year, which, really didn't have very many highs at all. But let's even go back to Oregon. He has a season where he knocks off top 10 Washington and then blows, what was it, like a 31-7 lead to Stanford or something like that, in a pretty similar end-of-game situation where Cristobal also did not take a knee. C.J. Verdell fumbled, and then Stanford ended up winning that game in a weird, fluky loss in overtime. His last year at Oregon, they go to Columbus and knock off a really, really good Ohio State team with C.J. Stroud. Then they come back a few weeks later. They lose to Stanford in overtime on the road. They also had a really, really bad scare with Cal at home, in a Cal team that I think only won like 3 or 4 games or something like that. So they've had some really, really high highs, and they've had some really, really devastating lows. And I think we just saw what's going to be the devastating low of this season, because the way that I've looked at this is you're never as good as you think you are. You are never as good as the team that is able to go out and thump Texas A&M, putting up 48 points on a defense that, it's not really looking as bad as a lot of people thought it was going to be. You have that sort of offensive explosion. The offense clicks the way that it does the first half of the season, but you're also not going to be the team that finds a way to lose to Georgia Tech. You're going to be somewhere in the middle. So the question right now is, what is that happy middle for Miami, and how consistently is Miami going to play at that happy middle? Is Miami going to play on the higher side of that happy middle? Is it going to play on the lower side of that happy middle? Because right now, if Miami stops the bleeding right now, they go to North Carolina, they win a top 25 game on the road. All of a sudden, Georgia Tech becomes well in the rearview mirror. And then if they come back the next week and they knock off Clemson at Hard Rock for the first time in forever, because I seriously do not remember the last time that Miami beat Clemson, all of a sudden, not a lot of people are going to be talking about Georgia Tech. And the conversations that are had about the Georgia Tech game are going to be more based around, man, how did this Miami team lose to Georgia Tech? How is that possible? How did this happen to begin with?
That's what they got to do now, obviously. And, the question is, can this team, which has a recent history of folding its tent when it has adversity, all the conversation that we've heard in recent weeks has been about a better culture, a player-led team, how all that is turning. It's going to be put to a test this week. There's no doubt about it. All right, I want to talk about a couple things here. First, Mario's decision. Why did he make that decision? Okay, Mario has a history of not kneeing the ball at the end of games. So that suggests that this is a philosophical thing with him, or at least it used to be a philosophical thing. I don't know that it's a philosophical thing moving forward after what happened Saturday night. But if I were to guess what was going on, and I tried to do some homework on this today. I mean, I had to tread a little delicately through some channels to get information, but from everything that I could gather, there was conversation, and Mario told Shannon Dawson to run the football. Okay. There was conversation about taking a timeout. There was a decision made not to take a timeout. You heard Mario talk about it in the press conference that they should have taken a timeout and recalibrated, but they chose not to do it. They chose to run the football. I believe that was at the direction of Mario, which backs up the notion that this is his philosophy. We are going to play physical, tough football to the final whistle, and I am preparing this team for tougher days ahead against North Carolina, against Clemson, against Florida State, against Louisville, which just beat the crap out of Notre Dame on Saturday. Like, there are some tough games ahead, including at NC State is going to be no walk in the park either. There's maybe no gimmies left on the schedule unless you want to consider, after what happened Saturday, Virginia a gimme, but I'm not even considering that a gimme. So I think that the only explanation you could come up with is that was Mario's philosophy in terms of coaching his football team and developing his football team. If I am right about that, I think that's out the door now. I think next time you're going to see him take a knee. I can't imagine he would ever expose himself to what happened Saturday ever again for the rest of his coaching career. But the other thing that gets lost in the trash is all the other things that happened in that game, Matt, starting with the defensive implosion at the end. To Corey Couch, allowing that ball to get over his head 30 yards up the left sideline and get completed, which put them in position for that final play. Jafari Harvey losing containment on the quarterback, allowing him to get outside, which bought time for the broken play type of atmosphere that allowed the receiver to get behind Cam Kinchins, who inexplicably allowed that to happen and score the winning touchdown. That's lost. All that's lost in all this Mario talk. And then, the other things that happened in the game, Tyler Van Dyke throwing 3 interceptions, playing a horrible game, the conservative play calling of Shannon Dawson, which left Miami with so many empty possessions without points. What am I leaving out? There was something else that came to mind. But the point I'm making is there was a lot of other things that went on in that game, guys, that just gets lost in the trash. But it can't get lost in the trash because the defense, I thought, once again, this is the second time now. Everybody kind of, a lot of people grimaced when I made a big deal about the Corey Couch's interception at Temple on a 4th down where it cost the team 35 yards. Well, that was lack of situational awareness. And we saw it again on the final play when they allowed that receiver to get behind them in coverage. That is lack of situational awareness. Corey Couch's play on the sideline I just talked about. Lack of situational awareness. This team on defense needs to spend some time this week discussing situational awareness, being aware of what is going on in the game and what you cannot allow to happen. And hopefully they will do that. But, Matt, I hope I'm setting the table for your next monologue. But there was a lot more than just Mario Cristobal's mistake that happened in that game that contributed to Miami losing.
I mean, I guess you didn't hear what I said. I'm done talking about that game. But I mean, what I will say is sports to some extent is like human nature. Players watch game tape just like anyone else, and when a player on a football team and a group of players on a football team watch tape together and prepare for a game, and people could say the bye week, they come off bye weeks terribly, whatever. But when you're preparing for a particular game, when you see, it's like human nature studying for an exam in college, right? If you're taking organic chemistry, it's the hardest class that I can think of in college, versus Shakespeare, which I took, which is the easiest class in college. That's actually difficult too, but I'm still using that as an easy class because it was easy for me, and organic chemistry would be very difficult for me. So if you're taking organic chemistry and you got your final exam, which every game is for this team, right? It's a playoff. Mario says every game's a playoff. You're going to spend a lot more time studying for organic chemistry, which is North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, Florida State, than you're going to spend studying for your Shakespeare class, which is, Georgia Tech. Now, I want to stop short of saying Miami players didn't prepare for the game. They prepared, but perhaps they didn't go the extra mile. It was obvious in the game they didn't go the extra mile. And this isn't just Georgia Tech. They do that fairly regularly throughout the last 19 or 20 years. And with the caveat that these first games, Texas A&M, they prepared great. The opener, they're always going to prepare for because they're excited to get out there. And then, they just played some really, really bad teams that played terribly, I think, against Miami. And that did them no favors. When you're not playing good teams in game 3 and game 4, and then you got a team that's really mad, that's not even a good team, but they're just really mad after a Bowling Green blowout. This is what happens. You didn't prepare like you were going to your Orgo final. You prepared like you were on your Shakespeare final. And you wound up, wearing the fancy wig and like being a Shakespearean actor instead of being a gladiator, like you need to be. And the sad thing about it is, fans now, they're not like fans when we grew up. Fans, for whatever reason, they mirror what happens in politics. Like when Gary was young, there was no politics. It was a monarchy. The British king was still in power. When I was growing up, the politics, Republicans and Democrats back then, there was a very small window, and I remember taking, politics classes in college and things like that. And they would talk about how, in the broad scheme of politics, Republicans and Democrats are right in the middle, really close together in the broad scheme when you look at the furthest left wing, furthest right wing that there can be in the entire political spectrum, ranging to totalitarianism. And what you've seen in the political spectrum over the last, 5-10 years is it's getting wider, right? The crazy left people, the crazy right people, there's going to be a civil war in America because all these, these people want guns, these people want peace, kill the peace lovers, put the gun lovers in jail, whatever. They all hate each other. And like for Miami in sports, for every team in sports now, it sort of mirrors that, where you have the lefties who just want, Mario Cristobal, anything he does, give him a chance. It hasn't been long enough, right? Yeah, he had a brain aneurysm, whatever you want to say, in the last game, okay? But, it's a process, whatever. And then you got the righties who are like, fire everybody. It's no good anymore. This is not going to work. I can already see what's happening. We got to start over, whatever, all this craziness on the message boards. And there's no middle in between. Common sense, like what Matt Shodell brings to the show every day. Common sense. Common sense dictates that this was never the team that the lefties and righties thought it was. The reactions of both spectrums, I think the haters is on one side, and I don't know what you call the other side, the lovers. I'm not either. I'm certainly not a lover. I don't really want to be a hater either, but I try to be in the middle. In the political scheme, I'm actually an independent. So, like, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not listed as a Democrat. I'm not listed as a Republican. I'm officially listed as an independent. And I feel like that's what I am on this show. I got the crazy on the left. I got the crazy on the right as you're looking at your screen, and I'm in the middle. I'm the independent. So as the independent, I'm telling you guys, like, don't listen. If you're a righty or you're a lefty, like, rethink your process. Stop watching CNN, stop watching Fox News as it relates to this analogy, and like listen to me, Matt Shodell channel, because Matt Shodell channel is going to keep saying what he's consistently said. Not a championship team this year. Need a couple more recruiting classes. Not going to be a 10 wins this year, although I did change my tune after the beat Texas A&M, which I just should have stuck by my guns and stayed with my 8-win prediction, maybe 9 wins at most, which is what I said. 7-9, I stayed at 8. And next year, 10 wins, following year playoffs. That's what I still think will happen. It's one game. It's a stupid mistake by Mario Cristobal. It was a terrible offensive game plan, terrible offensive execution, and somehow they still should have won. Like, even with everything they did wrong against not a good Georgia Tech team, but still an ACC opponent, like, they still should have won. If Don Chaney doesn't fumble, if the refs rule him down, if Mario takes a knee, whatever, if something else had happened and Miami had won, within 2 or 3 days, all the fog of the most recent game goes away, and everyone's just excited about North Carolina. It's because of one dumb, stupid, fill in your adjective mistake by Mario Cristobal that now everyone wants to blow things up, And again, you have to take the mile high view as a political independent and just say, take a breath. I like this morning. I just got on my knee and I just took a breath. I enjoyed now ever since last night. I've been just getting on a knee and just enjoying myself. Like, it's just nice to be on a knee, right, Mario? Isn't it nice? It's nice. It's relaxing. It's very calming. You get on a knee, you go like this, and the game's over.
Your knees actually allow you to get down on them. Like, you can make that with like no pain at all.
Hey, leave the jokes to Ferman, okay, Wagner?
All right. Hey, did they get caught? All right. I'm watching that game, and that offensive game plan, the offensive play calling didn't look like anything I'd ever seen from Shannon Dawson before. Not since he got here.
That was not his off. What we saw was not his offense. It was anybody who's watched every game of his in the last few years and this year, that was not his game plan. Okay, that did not have Shannon Dawson's fingerprints. Like, if you're a criminal investigator, you're saying he did not commit the crime. It's not his. You leave the body behind with a mark on it.
It just didn't look like anything we'd ever seen from him before. And we don't get a chance to talk to him till later today. But I'm wondering, I don't think they've shown 75% at least of his playbook yet. Like, we're going into game 6 Saturday. I don't we've seen hardly any passing game to the backs, to the tight ends. Every now and then they roll out a pass play or two down the field, but I don't think we've seen the bulk of his offense. I think that they've been saving it for this gauntlet of games: North Carolina, Clemson, FSU. Did they get out-cuted, Saturday, and losing that game by not unleashing more man on Georgia Tech?
What's happening?
I don't know. Did you hear me?
I can hear you. What were you asking me?
I said, did they get caught? They haven't shown a large percentage of Shannon Dawson's offense from what I know and believe. I mean, did they get caught not having enough in the game plan for Georgia Tech?
Yeah, see, I see your lips moving, but I don't understand what you're saying, so that's why I'm just silent. What you're saying makes no sense. He put in his offense, the plays he thinks they can run is what he's running. Like, I don't know what plays haven't they run, Gary? What I don't understand what nonsense you're spewing. 75%.
We haven't seen a lot of passing to the tight end. We saw one pass to Riley Williams.
What tight end can catch the ball on this team? And Shannon Dawson's never passed to the tight end.
Williams looked phenomenal on that play.
Shannon Dawson, if you watch the last couple of years, Shannon Dawson does not use the tight end in his offense. I mean, I'm sorry, he doesn't. But now they have a pass catching tight end. They threw the ball to him twice. So now I don't understand what you're trying to say. I think they've got a lot of offense they haven't shown yet that they've been saving for let me tell you what's
coming up. And they might have got a little caught not scoring enough points against Georgia Tech.
The Shannon Dawson offense, as effective as it usually is, really, I don't love the idea of just throwing constantly to Xavier Restrepo down the middle for 10-yard gains, which is what he does. But that's what he did to Tank Dell. he constantly is throwing to the slot receivers. Like, that's his offense. So to say, like, we haven't seen 70% of his offense or whatever, like, that's his offense. Like, watch Houston film. That's what he does. He throws to Tank Dell every time, except when they cover up Tank Dell and then he throws over the top, or he, or whatever. Like, most of the throws are going to Tank Dell. Most of the throws are going to Xavier Restrepo. He loves throwing to the slot receiver. If he wants to put a tight end in the slot and throw to him, he can, but he hasn't done it. They targeted Riley Williams twice. I don't think that makes it all of a sudden the tight end is now being incorporated in the offense, which he's been waiting to do forever because he's never used the tight end very much. I don't think he's going to start doing that all of a sudden either. He is what he is. What we saw in the first 4 games was great. His offense was flourishing. They were running the ball effectively. They were passing the ball effectively. They were throwing deep. They were throwing underneath. They were spreading the field left and right. They did everything right. But this game, for whatever reason, they decided we're just going to run the ball and we're going to have a short passing attack, similar to, I believe there was 1/2 of a game, I think early in the year, where they did something like that. Where there's like, if they're going to play backwards, going to run it. I can't remember which game. It might have been, was it Miami, Ohio? Whatever game it was. They're like, if you're going to play too high safety and play everyone back, we're just going to run the ball, And that they did that one other game, and they took that same approach in this game, but it backfired. So I wouldn't say he's held back any of his offense at this point. What I would say is this was not his offense in this particular game. I would say somebody else, whose name, maybe rhymes with Hario Bristol put his own fingerprints on it, and he needs to stop doing that.
Okay, but you don't know that happened.
No, I don't.
So
I'm basing it on what I saw with my eye. I'm basing it with what I saw with my eye.
You're just throwing, you're throwing gasoline on the fire.
No,
and I'm
if
not
I see a guy,
I'm just saying,
if I see a guy
that Mario told Shannon Dawson to do.
I do not know that, but what I do know,
what we were told was that they were playing coverage in a way that required patience. That's what we were told in the post-game press conference.
What I do know is if you see one guy carrying a can of acid past an apple tree every day, and the apple tree is just fine, and then all of a sudden there's a new guy walking past the apple tree, and he walks by it, and all of a sudden the apple tree is dead the next day, I'm guessing the guy poured the acid on the apple tree. Like, that's just what I'm guessing. I could be totally wrong, but I'm just guessing that.
All right, listen. I know you have an appointment with your therapist here this morning, so I'm going to let.
Hey, don't pretend you don't go to the same therapist I do, Gary.
I'm going to finish with Steven because we're gonna talk about good news,
right.
And that's not.
I can leave.
That's not your department. Your department is
okay. So I'm leaving.
Leave, yes, because I know you have an appointment, and you've taken up so much time. Yeah, We're sending you out because we're getting ready to turn this show to something positive, and that's
Steven thinks a
so,
mitzvah is some sort of.
Bye, Matt.
Steven thinks
bye, Matt. Have a nice day. All right. We're going to talk about some good stuff here. But first, I got to talk about Game Time, which is good stuff because I know it's the time of year where you guys out there go to a lot of different sporting events, whether you live in South Florida, obviously with Dolphins, the Panthers are kicking in now, the Heat, Inter Miami, soccer. Although, man, they lost one with Messi the other day at home. That was hard to believe. But there's a lot going on. And sometimes you don't have season tickets and you need tickets to the game. Well, when you need tickets to the game, your place to go is gametime.co. Yes, .co, not .com. Gametime.co. You also can download their app at your respective app store. And Game Time basically simplifies the entire ticket purchasing process for you. They will find you the best price. They will give you a guarantee. If you find a cheaper ticket in the same section, same row, they will give you 100%, 110% guarantee on your purchase. They will show you a visual image of your seats and how it's going to look from where you sit, and they will make your purchase absolutely seamless, so that you won't have a lot of difficulty getting your tickets into your phone and going to the event. So they've got flash deals, zone deals, lowest price guarantee, everything you could want in buying a ticket you can get from Game Time. And if you download the Game Time app and you create an account and you use the code CANES, CANES, they will give you 20%. I mean, they will give you $20 rather off your first purchase. So that's a pretty darn good deal right there. And there are some terms that apply to that. So make sure you read the fine print, but use the code CANES either on the website or in the app. You will get $20 off your first purchase. So download Game Time today. Go to their website and start saving money on your tickets, buying them easily, and then you just get to go and be relaxed and enjoy the event. GameTime.co. All right, Stephen. Now that we got everybody's ticket purchases for future events and games out of the way, let's talk about the good news. Despite everything that happened this weekend, okay, the Miami Hurricanes got a commitment last night from one of the top wide receivers in the country, a guy that was committed for a long time to Georgia, and that is Nykar. How big of a get was this from Miami?
Well, it was so big. Excuse me, still getting over that illness. It was so big that I looked this up, and Miami has not landed 3 top 150 receivers in the same recruiting class since 2008. Randy Shannon was the head coach. Barack Obama was in his first year as the president of the United States. I was in 3rd grade. That's how long ago all of this was. This really is just absolutely massive for Miami. Now, is this the 3-man receiver class that Miami fans probably thought that they were going to end up with whenever, we first started digging into the 2024 class and we started kind of exploring what it may look like and talking about some of Miami's different receiver targets? Probably not. I know a lot of people were really hoping for Jeremiah Smith, JoJo Trader, and Chance Robinson. Well, guess what? Nykar, JoJo Trader, and Chance Robinson is still something Miami hasn't done in the better part of a decade and a half. This is This really does lean toward, I think, what Mario Cristobal is hoping is going to sort of maybe be a little bit of a shift in identity for the program. Miami is leaning really, really heavily into receivers, and they are investing very, very heavily into the receiver position. And I think that landing a guy like Nykar to now have 3 recruits all within the top, or to have 3 receivers all in the top 150 in this recruiting class, I mean, that is an absolutely massive deal for a team that's starting to finally lean toward the receiver and skill position groups. Mario Cristobal's MO for the longest time has always been offensive line comes first, everything else comes from there. We're going to build from the front back. Well, now all of a sudden, Miami looks like they will have those really elite skill position guys if these guys develop the way that we all think that they're going to develop. And of course, with the rankings, that's everyone's estimation of how good a recruit could end up being. And if that holds true, and this is how good these recruits are ultimately going to end up being, you're going to have 3 of the best receivers in the country, hopefully in that classification, on your roster, all playing together. Now, they're all at very different points in their development at the moment. Some are probably a little bit closer to seeing the playing field than others. But you have to think that by the time that their sophomore and junior years roll around and these 3 guys hopefully become really, really major contributors, that at the very least, they're going to add tremendous depth to this team. And you're really hoping that this is going to give Miami that offensive explosiveness that, frankly, they haven't had for really about 20 years or so. So this is really, I think, something I really can't overstate the importance of this get for Miami. And I think fans need to be really, really, really excited about this because it's absolutely massive. Not to mention, all of this came while Miami's head coach is being chastised nationally for a really, really bad end-of-game decision. All of this is going on while the national media is scratching their heads wondering how the heck Miami lost the game. And while Miami brought more than 24 blue-chip priority recruits to a game that ended with fans throwing trash on the field. All of that happened, and Nikar committed to Miami.
Yes.
Think about that. All of that happened, and they still got Nikar a top 150 recruit, which I just really find absolutely unbelievable. So, Miami fans, pat yourselves on the back. I'm going to sleep pretty well tonight.
It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing, when you put it in that context. And not to mention, a very average day by Tyler Van Dyke. I know he had a lot of yards, but not even close to his normal standard. And the receivers weren't really getting the ball as much as you would like. I mean, most of the passes were going to Restrepo. And yes, it was not a postcard day for the Miami offense, yet they were able to secure this commitment of Nikar. And hopefully that'll be a real big deal. I don't know what happened at the stadium will help their cause in getting Jeremiah Smith, the nation's top recruit. But they certainly won't give up. And hopefully they'll have some better days on offense moving forward that will allow Jeremiah Smith to totally forget what he witnessed at Hard Rock Stadium on Saturday night. Kind of crazy. All right, so we have some other recruiting stuff on the site today. We have an update with Fort Lauderdale American Heritage safety Xavier Lucas. He's been committed to Wisconsin for 2 months. Miami is on the case, working its way into his picture. We give you an update on that. We also have an update from 4-star Ohio State commitment Jordan Lyle. Get his thoughts on where Miami stands in his picture. So make sure you check that out as well, along with a story on committed linebacker Cam Pruitt, who also was in the recruiting section on Saturday night. You could see what his take was after the goings-on at Hard Rock. A lot of stuff coming your way this morning. We'll have a couple availabilities with Mario Cristobal to report on. We'll be speaking in the afternoon with Shannon Dawson and Lance Guidry. Those promise to be very, very interesting media sessions. So make sure you check out the coverage of that as well. Program notes this week, we will have a CaneSport live show Tuesday night. You guys will get to sound off, give all your opinions on what we watched at Hard Rock on Saturday. And then we will also have the Lamar Thomas show on Wednesday night. And I'm sure Lamar will have a lot to say as well. So a lot of good stuff to look forward to this week. We'll be giving you guys a lot of analysis of the North Carolina game, which still is a very big game for the Miami Hurricanes. Let's not let what happened against Georgia Tech diminish this national televised Saturday night opportunity in Chapel Hill this weekend, because that is going to be a big deal by the time it gets here. Until it gets here, I think a lot of people are going to still continue to be miserable over what happened against Georgia Tech. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. If you're on YouTube, you like this show, like our channel, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It helps us with the algorithms. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day at CaneSport. Please, please, please become a subscriber. Join our community of fans. We do not think you will be sorry. So for Matt Shodell, who's off doing whatever, seeing his therapist, and Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.